Hi everybody. So of course we've been working in Inkscape, the open source digital illustration application, in order to learn about how to do graphic design. I've been focused mostly on the basics of Inkscape, but we're going to go away from that and we're going to focus on a real world application. I have some actual work to do and I'm going to show you how I do that work. So stay tuned. Here we are in Inkscape. Let me tell you a little bit about this job. I'm going to import an image. This image here, this is a logo for NJLLA, a library association in New Jersey. They were kind enough to let me use this example in order to show you how to do this task. And the task is that the image that they sent me is the only image they have of their logo, and it is pixelated. And as a result, it's not usable in wide scope applications like posters or certain websites where it might appear very large. My friend at NJLLA sent me this logo and asked me to take a look at it, and here it is. Now I'm going to show you something that is useful with Inkscape no matter what, and that is to match your page size to whatever it is that you're working on. In order to do that, I have to go into Document Properties. Happens to be right here in the toolbar. I'm going to click on Document Properties. Right here it says Resize to Content, and I'm going to click this button, and the page is now exactly the size of the logo that was sent to me. Okay? And that's going to be helpful as we are doing comparisons between our vectorized version of the logo and the original logo that we were sent. One thing you need to know is, in order for what I showed you to work, you have to have the item selected. So if I have this item selected and I click on Resize to Content, it will make the page the same size as the object. Okay? Now, I can move this item off of the page in order to work with it, and that leaves my page free for me to do work in there as well. Okay? How do you take a logo that looks like this? I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to zoom in on my mouse, and you'll see there's all these artifacts and pixels and compression artifacts and just some stuff in here that is not the logo. So they want to have a clean version of the logo. How do you do that? Well, the way that I would do it is I'd open up Inkscape, I'd import an image like this one, and I'd go to my Path menu and choose Trace Bitmap. And here is the Trace Bitmap dialog. And I'm going to do a single scan as opposed to multicolor or pixel art, because the color is not especially important in this case. I'm going to do brightness cutoff, which is the default, as opposed to these other options here. We may talk about these other options in other videos. They are each interesting and helpful. But right now we're going to rely on brightness cutoff. And then you'll notice there is threshold, speckles, smooth corners, optimize, and user-assisted trace. We're most interested in threshold. And when I move this slider back and forth, you can see I've gone too far there, and as I move back, more artifacts show up. So I want to get to the sweet spot where all of the speckles from going too far in this direction and all of the speckles from going too far in this direction are not present. I'm going to call it right about there. Now, this is going to be what my scan is going to be. And what this is going to do is take the pixels of the bitmap and convert them into vectors, nodes, and lines. So I'm going to click on Apply, and I'm going to close this dialog. It appears as though nothing has happened, but in fact something has. I'll prove it to you. If I click here and move this over, what has happened is there is now a path as opposed to a image. When I click on this image, you can see down here the information tells me it's an image 424 by 468. When I click on this object here, this path, it tells me it's a path with 204 nodes. And these are two different ways of looking at visual information. In Inkscape, we have the ability to work in vectors, which is incredibly important, especially for a task like this. We have talked about being able to edit a path, to be able to curve lines and move points, and that's going to be especially useful here as we try to clean up this logo. I'm going to, with that path selected, choose the node tool, and you'll see that nodes now show up around the edges of these letters in the logo. Let's get a closer look. I like the shortcut number 5 on your keyboard that takes you right to the page at its edges, and so it's an easy way to zoom in on just what you're working on in the page. I click on my logo, and there are extra nodes. There are places where nodes exist where they do not need to. They're extraneous. In order to give us the cleanest possible logo, I'm going to remove the extra nodes. I'm going to hold down Control on my keyboard, and I'm going to scroll in with my mouse so that I can get a closer look at this logo. So I can select these nodes. You can see I'm dragging a box with the node tool around these nodes, which selects them, and then I can hit delete on my keyboard and get rid of them all at the same time. Up here, this is an important node. This is the corner of that letter form. If I were to remove that node, let's say hit delete on my keyboard, you can see it turns into a curve. We don't want that. That's a dramatic change from the way the logo started. And so I'm going to do a Control Z so that we get that node back. If you remove nodes and it causes a lot of chaos, you can always undo to get back to the point where you were before you removed the node. So I see an extra node in the middle here. We can delete that. I see an extra node in the middle here. We can delete that. Here are some extra nodes that we can get rid of here. I'll select those and delete them. More extra nodes down here. And you may ask, how do you know which ones you can delete and which ones you can't? If it's not on a corner, or it's not a place where is the main reason that the form is going that way, it's extraneous and can be removed. It's something that you get a feel for over time.
Here are some extra nodes.
Now, you can see it went from a curve, as it was originally, to a straight line. That's not something that we want, so I'll Control Z to get that curve back. I'll click away. So most of the extra nodes have been removed from this A. I'm going to scroll over to the N, and same thing, I'm going to take out any nodes that are straight where they should be curved.
Here's one we don't really need.
Okay, now I'm going to zoom out and come down to the bottom of the J. Most of these can be removed. And I'm pretty happy with that right there. So how do I know that the original logo that they sent me and the modified logo that I've cleaned up are similar? Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to move the image. I'm going to use my selection tool with the pixelated logo back over top of the vector. Okay, I'm now going to take that image and I'm going to make sure it's all the way on the bottom of the stack of images. In other words, When two objects in Inkscape occupy the same space, they have a depth. Those items are stacked on top of one another, and you can choose whether or not something goes ahead of or behind something else. This is related to layers, but it's not quite the same thing. It's almost like each object has its own layer. So, when I click here, what is chosen is the path. That means the path is closer to me than the image is. The image is behind the path. And so I'm going to select this path as I have, and I'm going to make it red so that it is a visual reminder that this vector object, the logo that we've modified, is on top of the bitmapped image. Okay? I'm also going to take the opacity. That's what this 100 is down here next to the letter O. It is opacity, and I'll change it to 50% opacity. And what that allows me to do is to select and move the vector so that I can see through it when I am lining it up with the original logo. Okay? I'm going to hit 5 in order to center on those two objects. And I'm going to click on the node tool so that I can make modifications if anything is wildly out of line between the vector image that we're working on and the original that we were sent. That N looks pretty good. I'm actually going to move the vector just a little bit more over top of the original. Okay, and I'll scroll to the top of the J and the bottom of the J. I'll choose my node tool because I'm not really happy with how that aligns with the original. So I'm going to do some fine tuning right here. I'm also going to grab this curve and move it in a little bit to be more like the original. We'll scroll back up. That looks pretty good. We'll scroll over. That looks pretty good. We'll scroll down. Now, when I was playing around with the A, I definitely removed one too many nodes and figured I would have to reshape it a little bit when we got to this stage. So you can see I'm using a combination of sometimes grabbing the edge of the line in the path and sometimes grabbing the handle. It just depends on exactly what you're doing, which you will choose. But that's looking pretty good. Now, I'll hit 5 on my keyboard in order to come back out to the edge of the page. I'm going to now use my selection tool. And I'm going to select the bitmap to bring it out of the way. I'm going to hit 5 again on my keyboard in order to come back to the vector logo. I'm going to click on black in order to make it black. It appears gray because we still have it set to 50% opacity. But at 100% opacity, it's now back to its full black on transparent status. That's what it is that we are looking at when we see this checkerboard in the background. That's a reminder that we don't have anything there. We're looking through to the page of Inkscape. What that means is that if we exported this, it would have a transparent background, which is useful for things like websites and other purposes. But they don't necessarily want to have a transparent background when I return this to them, because they sent me the logo in black with this sort of Kill Bill yellow-orange background. So I'm going to recreate that in our updated logo. And what I'll do is I'll use the rectangle tool and I'll drag out this rectangle. You'll say, well, that's no good. I can't see anything now. That's because the Z depth that we talked about before, where one object occurs before another, that black box I just made is in front of the logo. And I'm going to make it yellow first. And the way that I'll do that is by using the dropper tool. So I click on the dropper tool and I'm going to select the color of that background, and then I'll choose the selection tool, and making sure that the orange block is selected, I'm going to use this shortcut to bring that object to the bottom of the Z depth, meaning putting it behind the vector logo. So what we're looking at is one single bitmap that is all pixels, that has no lines or other divisions, and a background that we just created that is the same color as the background that we were sent, and a logo on top of that. Okay? Now, I'm going to fine-tune the edges of this to make sure that it is going all the way to the edge of the page. And I'm also going to take the logo and I'm going to bring it in a little bit to give it a little bit of an edge of that yellow-orange color, some space in between whatever it's up against. And the way that I'll do that is by selecting the logo, the path, and I'm going to hold down Control and Shift at the same time, and I'm going to drag from the side, and you'll see, because of the key combination of Control and Shift, it is bringing in all of the sides simultaneously and in a constrained format. So it is definitely not stretching, but it's also taking the edges, all of the edges, and reducing them all at once. And now that gives me a nice bit of white space. Okay? The only other thing that we need to talk about is saving and exporting. In Inkscape, when you save a file, it is saved as an SVG. That's where all of the vectors and other information that we have done in our work is kept. But we also need a file that you can use in order to put something into an email or put something on a website and so on. And for that, we will export. So if you're familiar with any other application like Photoshop and PSDs, or Adobe Illustrator and AI files versus PDFs, there is a work file and there is a share file. So the work file holds on to all of your work, and the share file is for putting up on social media or wherever else. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on Save, and it's going to default to my projects area, and I happen to have an NJLLA logo folder inside of that, and I'm going to call this NJLLA yellow back logo, and then I will click on Save. So what we have saved is all of the work that we have done, all of the vector points, all of the changes that we've made, the scanning, all of that is now recorded and part of this SVG file. So if I decide to make a change later, I can come back, open up the SVG, and not have to do all of that work to get back here. Now, in order to export, we're going to go to this export icon right here, and notice the logo that I want to export is selected. Okay, so I'm going to click on Export. It's going to bring up this dialog, and if I wanted to take everything that was on the canvas in Inkscape and export that, I would choose Document. You can see it shows both of the logos in the preview. If I click on Page, that's very similar to what I actually have selected, and I could probably use Page in order to get what I want. But instead, because I definitely want all of the logo and the background, I'm going to choose Selection. This width and height is fine, and it gives me a suggestion for what to save this file as. I'm going to instead use NJLLA yellow back, and PNG is a good choice. You can see that there is also PDF, JPEG, TIFF. I like PNG. And you click on Export, and we're all done. So not only have we solved this problem where we have pixelated A's and N's and L's and J's in our logo, those are all gone. Nice and clean. All it took was a little bit of node editing inside of Inkscape, and now we have a nice, fresh, clean logo. Okay. So, hopefully this has been helpful for you. In the event that you have to do something like this, I'd be happy to talk with you about it. If you decide to go through a change like this, I would love to hear about it. In the event that you don't want to know how to use Inkscape, you just need this done, contact me and we will work it out. I hope you are having a great day. I hope that you are nice and warm wherever you are. Here in Virginia, it's getting very, very cold, but it's comfortable in here. I'm glad that you spent some time with me today. I'm wishing you peace.